Welcome to Cryptic Accounts, a podcast by paranoid people for paranoid people. And this week on the show, WikiLeaks, the moon. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for liking, rating, and subscribing. I'm Patrick Ryan, joined by Dennis Cheney. Hi, Dennis.
Hello, Patrick. I
Ooh, do I
see
have
that
a fun one for you?
I see that your beloved. I see that your penchant for the moon has reached ultimate levels, perhaps.
Well, I think I said it on the one a couple weeks ago that there was a bunch of stuff I found I've kind of been putting together, and I just kind of decided I wanted to. I actually, yeah, I've got a few other things that I could do. I don't know that it's going to be consecutive moon episodes for a little bit, but there's a lot going on with the moon.
That's why people keep coming back, because we got that moon, baby.
That's
I
right.
don't know. I don't know if you saw. Maybe I'll send you the link to add to show notes. But there have actually been. Speaking of weird moon things and us and the planet, there have been two scientific studies in the last week that talk about giant planetary collisions and Earth and the moon being part of a bigger structure.
Hmm. That sounds familiar. That sounds really familiar, Dennis.
Yeah, these are from the first one I texted you maybe a week or two ago. I don't believe we discussed it because we were still going to do Genesis Revisited Part 3. And I don't think I brought it up, but the first one was talking about how the Pacific Ocean is cooling way faster than the Atlantic Ocean. And the Pacific Ocean, if you remember, that big rift was
Mm.
part of the reason Sitchin believed that we broke off from another planet. And literally, like the article, I believe it was like Popular Science.
Yeah, I
I
think you're
mean,
right. I remember what you're talking about. I think it
yeah,
was Popular Science.
the article's main theory for why that might be happening is that we like lost a piece of the planet in
Hmm.
that area. And then
Hmm.
today, literally 2 hours ago, I was reading another article. Um, I believe it might have been CNN, but it was reporting on some science, like some like major university study that said that studies of the Earth's core are showing that it might have pieces of another planet.
Really?
Yeah, apparently there's a second, more denser planet. Oddly enough, it said, if people want to go back and listen to the Genesis stuff, it said around the size of Mars is the calculation. They had a name for it, which was very close to Tiamat. It was like Tia or something, which would have collided with our planet, and which they believe there's irregularities in our Earth's core that are caused by this denser planet, the part that broke off from it sinking into our planet, and that the moon was somehow created by that.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, I wish I came with more. This is your episode, so I didn't come with like full sites and stuff. But these were two like mainstream media reports, and I was kind of floored. I feel like when we do shows on this show, we kind of see things afterwards or start noticing things
There's
that,
been a lot of that.
yeah.
There's
And
been a
this is a
lot of that lately where something we cover starts popping up in different ways like a month later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped for this. I'll let you go on.
Okay, well let's get into it a little bit. So, as we've talked about on the show, the idea that something strange is happening on the moon is not really that far-fetched at all, just in the little bit we've covered recently. In fact, given all the information that's now available within the public domain on the subject, it's hard to see how it's not actually a fact. We'll get to that a little bit more here in a bit, but first, I want to draw your attention to a strange WikiLeaks document entitled Report That You Are Destroyed Secret Moon Base. Now, unfortunately, the document is not completely in electronic form. Therefore, to get access to it, we'd have to do a Freedom of Information Act request. But what is available online is pretty telling in and of itself. So we'll put this up, but I mean, it's just a very simple clip from the NSA, I believe, that the title is the full title is Report That You Are Destroyed Secret U.S. Base on the Moon. It's dated January 24th, 1979. It's now unclassified. It has two Samuel L. Devine And so I wanted to know who he was. I believe it's referring to Samuel Leeper Devine. He was an American politician of the Republican Party. He served in the United States House of Representatives of the 12th Congressional District from Iowa in January 3rd, 1959 until January 3rd, 1981.
Just to be clear, is the UR, who's the UR?
Well, we're gonna get to that because I'm not completely sure, but put a pin in that for just a minute because I thought that same thing when I read this. Um, so okay, so that's pretty much the bulk of the information. The origin is EUR, Bureau of European and European Affairs. The office is not given specifically. It's from the Department of State of European and European Affairs.
Okay.
Again, to that representative. So, without speculating here, we can conclude that this is what they say it is: a report regarding possible space wars that are taking place in the classified world.
Oh, it's happening.
The
I didn't
document.
think it reached moon-based destruction levels, but
Oh boy, yeah. So the document title alone not only exposes the reality of these alleged wars, but the possibility of a secret moon base belonging to the United States that was apparently in operation until it was destroyed by UR. Now I wondered the same thing you did. What does UR mean? What I was reading pointed to the Soviet Union, but I've never heard the Soviet Union referenced in that way.
I mean, USSR starts with
Yes,
U and ends with R, but also it seems unnecessary in a report like this to use like an uncommon.
yes, it's a weird abbreviation. Again, this is the 70s, so it is possible that they would be referring to the USSR, but why wouldn't they write that out fully? So I started thinking about what is Ur. The first thing that came to mind was an old Sumerian state in ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah, I was just about to say that actually.
But that was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, that's weird to have because it did that was the first thing I thought of, and I'm like, that's weird. Why would that be here? And so I started like looking into just googling UR and some of the weird things that came up for that. Um, the free dictionary's definition of it is a combined form meaning earliest or original.
Oh, the originals.
Now, I started thinking and we've talked about it on the show, the Galactic Federation.
That's I was wondering if that had something to do with Galactic Federation
Mm.
or the Anunnaki.
And the next thing that came to my mind, and I don't really have anything to base this on other than trying to think of what this could be referring to, but what if there's a universal republic?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I almost think, and we're going to delve into this a little bit more, and I think by the end of this, you're going to see why I'm thinking this might be some sort of an extraterrestrial thing happening, as opposed to the Soviet Union.
I feel like, yeah, I'm excited to hear your take on it, but I'm usually not like this, which is odd to say for someone who helped co-create a show like this, but I'm actually kind of almost off the bat convinced this is not the Soviet Union for a multitude of reasons. Number one, if the whole moon landing was like a big dunk on the Soviet Union,
Oh yeah,
they obviously couldn't get there themselves, so they would have done it. There's also lots of times from that we've reported on from Kennedy to Reagan and probably secretly in between where we actually cooperated with the Soviet Union for space defense.
yeah. By the
And
late '70s, I think we were.
we were in some respects, yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And it also doesn't make sense that you would use it's two letters. You could just say USSR.
Hmm. There's room on that page. I mean, as you can see at the top of that, it's not like they ran out of text space and they needed to cut
Yeah.
a corner somewhere. Like they've got a lot of space there. They could have expanded that title.
There's also connections, as you mentioned, to the Anunnaki. It just seems like if we're dunking on the Soviet Union, why would we keep the space base secret? It just seems to me, knowing everything we know about history so far, that we were most likely, if anything, cooperating with the Soviet Union if we had a moon base. that was secret. And also, oh boy, let's get into it. Yeah.
So let's think about what other information exists that we know about besides this document showing that something strange is and has been happening on the moon. And just from this show, we've got a couple. We had the Chinese photos of what looked like some sort of a humanoid walking on the surface of the moon.
Yep.
We did a whole episode about it a couple weeks ago. There's tons of information. It's hard to know where to begin, which is kind of what's made it hard to cover this topic because I'm like, there's so
just
much.
just stuff we've covered. We covered astronauts circling the moon, talking about being followed.
Yep.
We've talked about Nazis having bases on the moon.
Yep.
We've talked about extraterrestrials having a portal from the center of the Earth to the moon. I believe we've talked at some point about the moon being possibly an artificial base. And if not, we should do a full episode on that. But yeah,
I think it's come up. Yeah, we talked about the NASA in the last episode, the NASA whistleblower, Ken Johnston, and the Apollo photos that supposedly reveal a bunch of stuff. Like, there's tons of stuff out there about this. So, first of all, okay, so let's try and head it in a direction. The idea that of bases on the moon have been an open discussion within the government for a long time. Although the information isn't easy to find, it's definitely out there. One document from the government's own publishing office is a great example. It clearly shows one of the goals of the United States government is to build a base on the moon, and this is as far back as 1966.
Yeah.
A portion of this document reads with references to Presidents Kennedy and Johnson in a statement by Honorable George P. Miller. Quote, I also believe that we can and will achieve the goals set by Presidents Kennedy and Johnson, a man landing on the moon before 1970. My own confidence is in our rapidly advancing science and technology is such that I can visualize many more dramatic achievements ahead, although I will fix no timetable for them. One, the exploration of the lunar surface, and possibly the establishment of one or more permanent bases there.
Well, it's always been weird to me. I remember when I was a high schooler after 9/11, Bush started the Artemis project. And the Artemis project was like, we're going back to the moon. But my whole life before that, it was like, well, the reason we haven't been back to the moon is there's really nothing there. And this Artemis project has, like, bizarrely, every president, Bush, Obama, Trump, I think Biden maybe mentioned it. They keep bringing it up, like, we're going back to the moon. We're going back to the moon.
Everybody has been bringing it up for a little while.
And it's like, okay, well, now it's been 20 years. There was literally less than 10 years between Kennedy saying we're going for the first time and when we went. And now it's like we are still pounding on it. Just, I don't know. It feels like we probably are already on the moon because it's like, well, why hasn't this been happening if it's so important?
Yeah, we have publicly traded private companies planning to head to Mars. Like, the idea that we haven't done something on the moon as our government, like, seems probably pretty unlikely.
That's the other thing. I know I make fun of Musk sometimes, but, like, that's to put it lightly. But, like,
I'll let you go. Just say what you're gonna say.
The idea of a billionaire, like, trying to get a billionaire off the ground to get rockets up, it seems very Aliens Space Marine to me. Like, you're trying to get private cargo companies because stuff is growing to the extent where you need to get free enterprise involved, which only seems appropriate for something like space travel when you have demand for product.
That is a really interesting point. Yeah, like Musk would be the guy to set up something like that for a space trade with some other civilization somewhere else.
Right, and they also seem to be playing multiple billionaires off each other because Bezos is doing it, Virgin Galactic guy is doing it. So it seems like they're trying to create a space like economy before we're there.
It's the New Indian Trading Company or New India Trading Company.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it was called, wasn't it? Like the biggest company there for like a couple
It was
hundred
like
years.
I think that was the first corporation. Is the
Yeah,
Indian Trading Company or something like that?
Indian
Yeah.
Trading Company. Yeah,
It seems like we are. It seems like an inappropriate. If you think about the link of how exploration works, like it starts with the government, like going into somewhere, and you think about how space travel works, like it seems like a weird, inappropriate thing to do 60 years later, like to start dumping money into places to send stuff that we've already been into,
yeah.
unless there's a free enterprise need to go there, which the transportation of materials, actually the transportation of people, like who cares, we've already done that. We could just rebuild the Apollo rocket, go back. The transportation of like supply lines for like an economy, which would only make sense if people were already there,
Well,
is like,
he wants to set up a civilization on Mars. Like he's talking about, I believe it's either 1 million or 10 million people that he wants to send to Mars. Like he wants to go set up some stuff first, and then he wants to send like at least 1 million people to go live on Mars forever and
oh,
colonize
right,
Mars.
right,
And
no,
that would
no,
be, and yeah, but to add to that, like that's for some sort of trading route sort of thing, or just more space to expand what needs to happen for this trade to happen.
yeah, I feel like it just doesn't make any sense. Like if we already have the technology to go there, to pump so much money into private enterprise, to be like, can you guys do it too? Because it's been 50 years.
Yeah,
So it just seems more like, it seems more appropriate, and this is highly conspiratorial, it seems more appropriate that like that if there's already something there that needs support, then we're going to get, because the free market's not great at like, you typically in human history you need like the Roman Empire, like the Indian Trading Company, or the corporation, some kind of government created thing to
hmm
like go do something new. It seems like the time to get the corporation involved is when you already have something there and you're like, we need the cheapest, most profitable way to get food to the moon. And then you're
yep.
like, Elon Bezos, Virgin Galactic guy, like here's a bunch of money.
Richard
Like, let's
Bronson.
see. Yeah, Richard Bronson, yeah. So I don't know. This is just me going off because I'm so excited there's WikiLeaks documents on the moon.
Yeah, no, I agree that I think you're making a really good point about, yeah, what's this, why spend billions of dollars, why is a private company spending billions of dollars to set up stuff in outer space,
There has to be
unless
profit.
unless there's
What's Elon
profit there.
Musk's profit in sending 1 million people to the moon? There's no profit in that. You there's nothing. You're just blowing money to go try to create an economy on the moon. What are you going to sell the moon people food more expensive? Like the only profit that could be imaginable is if there's already an economy in space.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so as we've kind of been talking about, there's decades old documents that have been declassified discussing this very topic of stuff going on the moon, in space in general, showing just how serious and how and far possible advancements with these intentions have gone. So another example taken from the CIA electronic reading room in the form of a memorandum that was addressed to the CIA director regarding, quote, military thought, top secret, by Lieutenant General Kornevsky. Yes, Kornevsky. And quote, already interest in the moon is not limited to a study of questions and a discussion of discovered possibilities. Specific projects are being worked on which propose the construction of various structures under the surface of the moon from the freight compartments of missiles, and also the employment of various versions of pneumatic structures. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and also various American companies, quote, for example, Martin Aerospace, etc., are conducting a great deal of work in this direction. Again, this is from like the 70s,
Yeah.
60s, 70s.
Yeah. Why would we just stop doing that?
Yeah, I don't think we did.
It's like everything else we discuss with the government. They always stop doing things right
Yeah,
around the time it gets serious.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this document really goes into detail regarding the importance of weaponizing space. Which brings to mind another document from WikiLeaks in the form of an email that was sent to politician John Podesta from Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was an Apollo 14 astronaut, along with Dr. Carol Rosin. It reads as follows, quote, Dear John, because the war in space race is heating up, I felt you should be aware of several factors as you and I schedule our Skype talk. Remember our nonviolent ETI from the contiguous universe are helping us bring 0 point energy to Earth.
What?
They will not tolerate any form of military violence on Earth or in space. The following information by Carol Rosin, who worked closely for several years with Wernher von Braun before his death. Carol and I have worked on the treaty on the prevention of the placement of weapons in outer space attached for your convenience. End quote.
Well, that's a bit on the nose. I can't believe that some conversations about pizza parties created WikiLeaks or created QAnon, but nobody talks about the 0 point energy extraterrestrials.
Which was when you were talking about going to Mars, that was another thing that I actually wanted to, that got me thinking about, and we're probably going to do an episode on at some point. The leaps and bounds we're seeing forward in jet propulsion right now, like the theoretical stuff that people are actually putting together and are like going to make us be able to travel super, super fast.
Yes.
And make these long space voyages seem a lot more possible than they were 10 years ago. And like there's some crazy stuff I've seen discussed that I've kind of been cobbling together. I think I'm going to do an episode on it at some point. Just the weird new types of like rocket and like ion propulsion and just the weird, crazy, like some stuff that sounds like science fiction essentially. Like it sounds like Star Wars.
The thing that struck, I'm a big sci-fi fan, so like first of all, when I hear about a new technology, my suspicion is always, okay, well, let's assume this actually happened 30 years ago, because that's the way we find out about things.
Usually.
Second of all, the thing that really has struck me with space travel in the last few months has actually not been our technology, even with like the Navy UFO reports, which we did an episode about, or the Navy UFO patents. The thing that's really struck me has been the space highway thing.
Yeah.
The fact that we figured out that there's
ways you can slingshot around planets and stuff.
Yeah, and it's not even just like traditional Newtonian. It's that there exist.
Yeah, like a pathway that things are flying through.
Basically a pathway, yeah. And it's like, oh, well, that solves a lot of problems pretty conveniently. Also, it seems like something we maybe should have realized sooner with math. It kind of feels like maybe
math is a cruel mistress, man.
Have used them. Yeah. So Edgar Mitchell, man, I've heard, he's been involved in a lot of stuff. He's just outright saying aliens have signed a treaty with us. Okay.
Yep. Or that we've signed a treaty with them that we're not going to take weapons into space.
Yeah.
We're gonna get back to old Edgar here in a little bit. Another declassified report that I found really interesting is by the Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center from June 1959. It shows just how seriously they considered a plan called Project A119, which I could have probably spun off into a whole episode just about the idea of this project. But in general, they wanted to investigate the capability of weapons in space, as well as gain further insight into the space environment and the detonation of, nuclear devices within it. Just what's it like when we blow a nuke up out in space? What's that going to do? We're going to need to know for when we need to nuke somebody in space.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
we're going to have to nuke someone in space. They, I don't know if I'm getting this from paranormal conspiratorial stuff, but I think this is legit. Like, I think there are legit studies that were done on like how to fire an AK-47 in space, how to fire guns, which makes all the sense in the world. I mean,
it totally sounds like something we as humans would do. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Also, it's like, okay, so you're the U.S. government. You're basically, what's the cliche? It's like the U.S. government, when you think about its budget, It's basically Social Security and military and then everything else.
Yeah.
And so they say the US government is basically an underfunded insurance company with an army. So I'm so I'm an insolvent insurance company with an army that's spending a bunch of money to put stuff into space. Like, you know damn well they're shooting weapons up there.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's no way they're not gonna like bring a gun to see what happens.
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
yeah.
For sure. So, okay. So now that's interesting to say the least about Project A119, but it's important to recognize the intentions behind the letter. And that this is the recognition that humans have brought and will continue to bring their destructive ways into space by weaponizing it or attempting to weaponize it. So, with all this documentation, it's also interesting to look into witness testimonies from credible sources. So in the 1950s, Colonel Ross Dedrickson was responsible for maintaining the inventory of the nuclear weapon stockpile for the Atomic Energy Commission, who were great people. We've talked about them before in the Karen Silkwood episode. Fine, upstanding group of individuals controlling nuclear arms in our country. And for the accompanying security teams, teams that tested the security of the weapons, among many other duties. When it comes to weaponizing space, this is what Colonel Ross Diedrichson had to say about it. Quote, I also learned from incidents involving nuclear weapons, and among these incidents were a couple of nuclear weapons sent into space that were destroyed by the extraterrestrials. At the very end of the 70s and the early 80s, we attempted to put a nuclear weapon on the moon and explode it for scientific measurements and other things, which were not acceptable to the extraterrestrials. They destroyed the weapon before it got to the moon. End quote.
Oh my god. Are we literally on a prison planet? Our Dominion doesn't even go to the moon. That
Yeah,
oh man.
we are
Uh
for real grounded in so many ways on this planet.
yeah. Oh man. Why would the director of the Atomic Energy Committee, like, what
Yep.
is he? Was he like? I'm trying to think, like, with my most skeptical brain, like, why would these words even exist on a page? Like, was he writing a novel in his spare time? Like, and it somehow ended up in official documents. Like, that is this stuff is this is all from WikiLeaks.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
This is
official documents that you can find. I believe this one was
right.
from the CIA vault.
I mean, my thing with WikiLeaks was at first I'm like, everyone back like 15 years ago was kind of like, well,
And I
who knows if you can trust them. I don't think the government has ever actually denied that anything they've published is true. I think it's all true.
No, they're just mad that it happened.
They're just mad it happened. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
mad they got caught.
No, and on the sources page, no, I do have links to a lot of these different documents that I'm referring to. Like I have the direct CIA, NSA links,
So
or
we so,
FBI or whatever I was getting them from.
so we basically confirmed that we have a moon base and we've tried to send nukes up there, but the aliens aren't having any of it.
I feel like that's basically where we're at. Yeah, something blew up our moon base. They took away our moon base at some point in the 70s.
Someone named
But we were ta-
Er.
but we were talking about sending nukes to the moon in the 50s.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
So Diedrichson is one of hundreds of whistleblowers with verified, credible, and impressive backgrounds to speak up about an extraterrestrial presence. So in that same interview, he went on to state that, quote, a spacecraft to the rescue of Apollo 13, and they accompanied Apollo 13 on their voyage around the moon back to Earth. And on two occasions, they thought they might have to transfer the crew to their spacecraft, but they saw them safely back to Earth.
That's the Tom Hanks movie I want to see.
No kidding. Where were the aliens?
I want to see the movie plus the aliens.
We're just ETs flying by. He's got the little finger
Wow.
going, just helping them along.
I can't decide though. Well, really, I have my opinion and I'll make it readily known though. But like, assuming all this is true, they sound quite friendly at times. Like
Well,
that's a friendly thing to do, right?
and we haven't done a full in depth on the different supposed species or races of whatever you want to call them, of these other terrestrial beings. But there do seem to be a few that are benevolent and very helpful, some that are just kind of neutral, and then there's only like one or two that are supposedly like got it out for us.
But also, let's assume they all have it out for us.
Well, they seem to be helping us quite a bit. Well, they police us. It kind of seems like we're almost being babied. Like, you know,
Yeah.
as a parent, like you'll let your kid get hurt a little bit to learn the lesson of getting hurt, but you're not going to let it like jump off a building or something.
Also, like,
But jump off the couch, maybe. Find out what gravity feels like.
let's say the Apollo 13 thing is true. So let's say that's all we know about that particular race. Okay, well, that's a nice thing to do. But also, if they have free energy or they're demonic or they're traveling around with other means, like it basically costs them nothing to do that.
That's
And then
true.
people like you and me go, "Oh, wow, you're so nice. Please blow up our nukes in space so we can never defend ourselves." Like that kind of sounds
Well,
like maybe
I didn't say I was a fan of that, but also like I don't really I'm not necessarily on board with nuking the moon either for just the fun of figuring out what it's like to nuke our moon. Like
we
it's a
nuke the Earth.
I don't think that was a great idea in a lot of ways, and I think
Yeah, but
radioactive.
I see this as I'm a monkey, Patrick. I see this as a sovereignty issue, and that's my moon. I wake up every day and I go to sleep every night and I see my moon. And I feel like if my monkey territorialism doesn't expand to my moon,
What if
then
it's
I'm
not your moon though?
it's my moon.
There's a lot of odd characteristics about it that are very different from most moons of other planets.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe something helped that be there a little bit.
Yeah, maybe they're like, hey, could you like not nuke our space station that helps your tides roll in
I
appropriately?
mean, based on just a little bit we've covered, it seems like there's some underground stuff going on there, and there are bases there. So yeah, they probably wouldn't want a nuke launched at it.
Okay, that's true. But also, but my main point is
Do I think
as
we should have access to it? Yes. Do I think it was a good idea? No.
my main point is I'm if my monkey brain, if the smartest monkeys in my tribe want to nuke the moon, I feel like we should be able to do that.
Well, I don't think that this is necessarily the smartest monkeys. I think this may just be the monkeys with the big guns, also. Like, we're talking
Yeah,
about like colonels talking about doing this.
yeah, well,
Like,
yeah.
this is the military, not necessarily like NASA's chief going, yeah, we should totally nuke it. No, before we land there, let's blow something up there first
but
before we get there at all.
but democracy. So like well, here's where it's really coming down to. Maybe this is more appropriate for the end of the episode, but like here's where it's really coming down to. Like we have dominion over this planet, or at least we tell ourselves that. Okay, now that should at least go to our moon because that's part of our planetary
Well,
system.
okay. What? Okay, let's think about it as possibly international water.
Yeah, but we need our moon to keep everything in check.
Well, that
And
okay.
and the
Maybe
worst
we poorly negotiated for the moon when all this started. We're not aware of that yet.
I think we poorly negotiated for the moon. I think my thing is I don't want to launch a nuke on the moon. I don't like that. I didn't even like it when we fired a missile like 7 years ago to see how much ice came up. Like I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't like doing this stuff. But my thing is what worries me is my sovereignty as a human because if I can't
Well, I feel like we've had an
if
issue with that the whole time.
if I can't launch a missile at the moon, Patrick, then what else am I not allowed to do? And all these excuses about like, oh, well, it's the stupid people that want to do that, or the extraterrestrials, like they shouldn't get a vote. Like I should get to nuke my moon, even if it destroys my whole planet, because
Well,
I'm
I mean, we've already covered on the show. It seems like they've interacted in us doing it on the planet as well. It seems like, in
yeah.
some regards, these things are shepherding us in a lot
I
of
don't.
ways. Whether
But
you
is that
agree with
good?
that, I don't know.
I don't know.
We do a lot of strange things to ants that would say that their ant hill is their sovereign nation, and we don't care about that at
But
all.
this is my planet. I.
And they think that's their hill on the. I don't know. I'm not going
Yeah,
to argue for the ants, but also
you're right. They probably negotiated a treaty like 1 billion years ago, and like they didn't realize we were here, and then they were like, crap. Like
Kind of
there are
like what the Europeans did to the Indians there at the beginning. Maybe something similar
exactly.
like that. They gave them some blankets and some beads, and they're like, "All this is ours now."
That's probably what happened is you get there and you don't realize who's there, and then you negotiate all these treaties,
We
and they
did all
probably
this for tinfoil.
they worked all this out for, oh my gosh, that's probably true. We probably gave away the moon for tinfoil. For
No,
real.
you can cut it really thin, you guys. Whoa.
That's
Yes,
so
take the moon. That's perfect. We're gonna have the best leftovers ever now.
I
Come here,
just
Clarence.
we gave away the moon for tinfoil. I just don't like the idea because that kind of thinking that like, well, we just stopped you because it's for your own good. Where does that end?
I
Because if
don't
they
know that it.
if they show up and they're like, well, now you have to take this pill for your own good. Like, where does it end?
Well, I mean, that may become a reality. Maybe that's what we're being prepped for.
I'm becoming Al Qaeda against aliens, and I've been saying this for multiple episodes. I feel like if I want to destroy my planet by nuking my own moon, it's my planet. I don't know what kind of this is the most human thing ever. You know what I mean?
It really
And,
is.
and I say
And
this
your
as
passion to argue for it is just
I
characterizes it perfectly.
it just ticks me off that these aliens want to stop us from nuking the moon. Anyway, let's continue.
I'm trying to tell you about moon bases and stuff, and all you want to do is nuke the moon bases.
I just want the freedom to nuke the moon. I'm not going to nuke the moon.
Well, somebody like pretty much nuked our moon base, so it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, Papa's not so nice now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I've kind of already said, like there's several astronauts that have come out and been very outspoken about extraterrestrial presence near our planet on the moon. Edgar Mitchell, Brian O'Leary, Story Musgrave, Gordon Cooper, and many others. Another pretty interesting document from 1965 regarding the CIA keeping tabs on Soviet space plans reads as follows. Number 11. The Soviets have additionally stated their intention to establish a lunar base subsequent to manned lunar landing, but no significant details or meaningful timetables have been revealed. If Soviet manned lunar landing is undertaken as a follow up to extensive Earth orbital operations and instrumented exploration of the moon, it is likely that they will enjoy some advantages in the establishment of a lunar base. Such an approach would allow for the concurrent development of the technology of lunar transportation and that of maintaining men in space for extended periods. It is possible it is possible that a late lunar landing may be followed fairly rapidly by the establishment of a Soviet base on the moon. That was over 50 years ago, Dennis.
Yeah. And okay, I'll argue this. If you just read that out of the context of our entire discussion, it was 1965. We were in a space race to get to the moon. Obviously, we both had plans to build a base there.
Yeah.
That does not say anything about there already being a
No.
base, or it's just a list of fears about the
Yeah.
Soviets. That being said, it drives home the point that we were very, very serious about building a base there.
Yep.
And why we would stop that all of a sudden 3 years after getting there makes
Especially
no
if
sense.
everybody else seems like they're very poised to do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So we all just gave up. We are the only ones that got there. Then everybody else just gave up until China decided a few years ago or whatever to start doing it.
Right. The idea, this whole story we tell ourselves about the space race, where it's like, oh, it was just like this academic. It's almost like a wrestling match where it's like first person to touch the surface of the moon wins, and then we just call it all off.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
Like there has to be reasons why we're doing it to begin with.
Yep.
And so this doesn't give me evidence there's something spooky going on, but it does give me evidence that like there's no reason we would just stop going to the moon in the early 70s. Like we had the idea in the deepest levels of our intelligence that like it doesn't matter who gets there first, it matters who gets a base there first.
Yeah. That does
It-
seem to be everybody's main objective. Look, we're all going to get out there, but somebody's got to set up a base first, and that's going to be very pivotal on everything that happens after that.
right, you have to have the base, and you have to know if the gun works, so you can kill the guy
Yep,
who tries to land second.
that's
Yeah.
right. An interesting quote from Carl Sagan is this: "It is not out of the question that artifacts of these visits still exist, or even that some kind of base is maintained, possibly automatically, within the solar system to provide continuity for successive expeditions. Because of weathering and the possibility of detection and interference by the inhabitants of Earth, it would be preferable not to erect such a base on the Earth's surface. The moon seems one reasonable alternative. Forthcoming high resolution photographic reconnaissance of the moon from space vehicles, particularly of the backside of the moon, might bear these possibilities in mind." And there's been books written on it, which I think these may end up being possibly episodes at some point. There's George
Yeah.
Leonard's very famous 1976 book, Somebody Else is on the Moon, and Fred Stecklin's 1981 book, We Discovered Alien Bases on the Moon. There's been a bunch of them, and have just countless, just credible people saying this, and it doesn't make any sense why they would all be lying.
Right, and even if Carl Sagan is just like talking off the top of his head,
Which he is.
it,
He's just giving his opinion there. He's just thinking.
yeah, it
But
seems like a lot.
he has an insightful opinion on the subject, though.
Yeah, he does. And he to the and Carl Sagan, I mean, this man is not to be trifled with. I mean, this is not I
That's
mean,
a
I
smart
I
dude.
yeah, right. I mean, to the point where he's giving reasons why we might not see it, such as the age or that it's somehow camouflage or is on the backside of the moon. It seems like his very important mind is going through a lot of work to try to tell you like, look, I know you might not see it, but it's probably there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So, members of the Society for Planetary Research, SETI Research, SPSR, published a paper a few years back in the Journal of Space Exploration about certain features on the far side of the moon that appear in the crater Paracelsus C, titled "Image Analysis of Unusual Structures on the Far Side of the Moon in Crater Paracelsus C." It argues that these features might not be artificial in origin. I forgot to include a picture of it. We talked about it a little bit though a couple of weeks ago.
Wait, just to clarify, it argues that they might be artificial in origin.
Yes,
Yes, right.
yes. Did I not say that?
You said it might not be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that they're arguing that these features might be actually artificial in origin. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that with me. So the study makes a great point when it comes to the extraterrestrial hypothesis as well. Quote, "A decidedly conservative mainstream scientific establishment often rejects anomalies based on subject matter alone, i.e., there cannot be alien artifacts on the moon because there are no alien artifacts on the moon or other planets. Such a view is an example of circular reasoning based on the belief that extraterrestrials do not exist. Or if they do exist, they could not have traveled to our solar system."
That's so true. That's so true.
That can't be a building. There's nobody up there. But what if
Or
there's
even
somebody up there?
even worse, these same people are like, well, we haven't seen them on Earth, so why would they be on Mars?
Yeah, it's a very
It's
weird.
yeah, and I've been for many years of my life, I believed basically whatever the scientists say, right? So it's like I've been there where I'm like, well, yeah, it probably doesn't exist because like I can't prove that they're here, so why would I have to prove that they're there? And it's like, yeah, none of this makes any. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a circular argument.
So the truth is, according to Dr. Brian O'Leary, who is a former NASA astronaut, as well as a Princeton physics professor.
Okay,
So he has a little bit of
he has
knowledge in this area.
some credentials.
He's got some skin in the game here. He says, quote, "There is abundant evidence that we are being contacted. The civilizations have been visiting us for a very long time." So when it comes to the moon, man-made bases may not be the only ones there. Yes, I'm
Well, yeah, well,
saying.
um, again, just like when we talked about the head of the space defense, who came out and said that Trump knew about aliens and we have a treaty with them and we're participating with them on Mars.
Yep.
Why would a astronaut who used to get parades back when
Mhm.
astronauts were important and a Princeton physics professor risk his entire reputation to say something like that?
Other than he's probably got some firsthand knowledge that says
He-
this is
He's
true.
probably been tipped off. They have to, to be an astronaut, like you have to be, first of all, crazy, at least back in the old days, and also super smart and accomplished.
Yeah.
And so these are the exact type of people who you couldn't just say, it's not like I'm not saying these people aren't intelligent, but like a normal, like a private in the military or like a police officer, where you could say, like, if you see this, just ignore it. These are people who are smart enough that they've done enough studying that, like, if they see something, probably if I was running like the secret space program, like, you got to read these people in.
Yeah.
You got to let them
Well, they're gonna
know.
figure it out pretty quick. I mean, I've seen enough videos where astronauts are holding up their hand in front of
Yeah.
their helmet cam, blocking out something flying by and doing weird motions like that. Like they
Yeah.
know
It
whether they
has to
get
be a
briefed
job requirement.
before, based on not seeing any of them freak out on videos. I'm assuming, yeah, you're right. Somebody probably clues them in, like, hey, while
Right.
you're up there, you're probably gonna see some stuff.
Yeah. And you
Just
may
be
not tell them
cool.
exactly what's up, but yeah, you
Yeah, because
have to read them in.
who knows which thing they're gonna run into. Just like be cool, don't be aggressive. It's nothing new. Whatever it is, it's nothing new.
Yeah, if your spacecraft breaks down, you might be taking a trip out of reality.
Yeah,
Like,
don't worry. A space tow truck comes by, helps you out, ferries you home. It's great. Okay, so when it comes to the moon, okay, like I said, okay, so as far as our own bases on the moon, so human bases on the moon are concerned, Carl Wolf, who was a precision electronics photograph technician at Langley Air Force Base, and he became well known when he provided his testimony at National Press Club in Washington, D.C., as part of Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project.
right.
Wolf's testimony less than a decade ago revealed that he was taken into a dark room where images from NASA's lunar orbiter were being developed and stitched together into a composite image called
Okay.
mosaics.
Right. That's the thing they have to do.
Yeah. He says, quote, they were doing 35 millimeter strips of film at the time, which were then assembled into 18.5 by 11 mosaics. Those strips were from successive passes around the moon, and they would build up a photograph, Wolf said. We walked over to one side of the lab, and he said, by the way, we've discovered a base on the back side of the moon. Somebody
Oh
else was
boy.
talking about a flyby in a mosaic. Ken Johnston a couple weeks ago
Yeah, he
was
was.
talking about seeing a base on the backside of the moon when they did flybys,
There's
but
a
they
base on
never
the
flew
backside
by.
of
They
the
never
moon.
flew by any of that, according to them officially.
There's a base on the backside of the moon.
Definitely multiple. It sounds like a good chunk of the moon is bases on the inside.
Which makes sense. I mean, who has bases on the outside of a place that you're not
Well,
welcome?
it's something that gets pelted by like meteorites all the time. It has no atmosphere to defend the
Right.
surface. Like you would have to build like intensely strong structures to be able to withstand what the surface of the moon goes through, unless you went underground.
Or just like the heat of the day.
Yeah, also that the wild temperature swings again, just the many perils of no atmosphere. So, okay, so Dr. John Bradenberg, he's the deputy manager of the Clementine mission to the moon, which was part of a joint space project between the Ballistic Missiles Defense Organization and NASA. It has also made some fascinating revelations. The mission discovered water on the moon's poles in 1994, uh, which I didn't know that was a thing.
I knew that we had strong evidence that there might have been water there. Oh man.
Well, according to Dr. Brandenburg, it is a thing that was there.
Oh, Please go on. I have something to say, but I'll let
Okay,
you go on.
so a quote from him: "The Clementine mission was a photo reconnaissance mission, basically to check out if someone was building bases on the moon that we didn't know about. Were they expanding them? Of all the pictures I've seen from the moon that show possible structures, the most impressive is a picture of miles wide rectilinear structures. This looked unmistakably artificial and shouldn't be there. As somebody in space defense community, I look on any structure on the moon with great concern because it isn't ours.
Right.
There's no way we could have built such a thing. It means something else is up there." And he said that in a documentary, Aliens on the Moon.
Man, kind of seems like someone's on the moon, boy, right?
It does kind of seem like maybe some people in the know seem to be suggesting that possibly somebody's on the moon.
That's got to be a crazy, if you're like in power, that's got to be a crazy realization for like all the reasons I stated earlier. Because you're like, uh-oh, I thought I was in charge of like maybe the only civilization in the universe, and now I'm I'm held hostage
I'm
here.
low man on the totem pole, actually.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
the king of an
boy.
anthill.
Oh no. Oh gosh, that's probably true.
Yep.
I no, we got to okay to the moon. We got to nuke the moon. We can figure out a way to do it.
Oh man, okay. So, a Michigan State University economist teamed up with multiple researchers, including Catherine Austin Fitts, former Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. They found trillions of unaccounted for dollars missing from housing and DOD, and it's actually going towards black budget projects.
Because of course, when you're trying to nuke the moon, you have to steal money from poor people who need housing assistance.
Well, it's just everything's budget is inflated to siphon it off in every which direction, I think is really what it is.
I know, but I love that the way it was found was like, hey, you're not helping poor people have places to live. What's going on the moon?
Yeah. So, okay, so we're talking about special access programs. So, it's a bit unacknowledged and waived SAPs. These programs do not exist publicly, but they do indeed exist. They are better known as deep black programs. A 1997 U.S. Senate report described them as, quote, so sensitive that they are exempt from standard reporting requirements to Congress, as we've talked about at several different points in the
Which is
last year on this show.
which is insanely anti-democratic.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm mentioning this stuff because whatever is happening with regards to the moon, I bet that it's being funded by trillions of dollars from within these deep black budget programs.
Right.
And these are tax dollars hard at work, essentially.
Right.
We don't really hear about these black budget programs or about people who have actually looked into them. However, the topic was discussed in 2010 by the Washington Post journalists Dana Priest and William Arkin. Their investigation lasted approximately 2 years and concluded that America's classified world has, quote, become so large, so unwieldy, and so secretive that no one knows how much money it costs, how many people it employs, how many programs exist within it, or exactly how many agencies do the same work.
Well, that just as a guy who has to work every day, that's pretty depressing. Also, as a human being, that's pretty depressing. Yep. Also, as an American, that's pretty depressing. I mean, I just say all around, that's pretty depressing.
Yep.
Unless I find out we're going to beat the aliens in a type of like Independence 2 space war, then I'll be totally cool with all.
It was all worth it. Yeah, I don't know that it's playing out like that. I think that was humans' wishful thinking in the directorial take on Independence 2.
Like, I hate to keep going back to this, but I'm actually going to go back to it seriously.
Okay.
It kind of seems like, if I piece all of this together, kind of seems like we've either made a deal or understood what the deal was that we're trapped here. unless we follow certain guidelines, including like not fighting with ourselves. Which, okay, war is bad, but also like an alien who can blow your stuff up telling you war is bad, so I'm going to keep you in your room because you're bad. That's worse to me than war. Because like if we do war on each other, that's war with each other. Like it happens, you know what I mean? Like it kind of seems like we've entered some kind of understanding with something that's essentially keeping us trapped here unless we do what they say they want to do, which even if what they want to do is good,
Okay, but
that kind of power relationship is not good.
what if they're all okay? So there's a bunch of different races of aliens. They're all working together, and we're basically North Korea. What if Earth is North Korea, and
Yeah.
the rest of the world is the rest of the universe around us? And we're just the crazy guys threatening to nuke everybody, and we want to send nukes out into space. We can't get them very far, so they just go off in the ocean. We threaten to nuke our neighbors on the moon.
Well, that was literally where I was going to go. So where I was going to go with this, and I've said it as a joke so far, kind of a joke, and I've often joked that I would love to be part of these black programs. It kind of sounds like we figured out what the deal was, and the reason why, and then we became Earth Al Qaeda or Earth North Korea, as you call it. It sounds like the reason we siphon these trillions of dollars out of our economy is the planet itself has become the equivalent of a terrorist group or a North Korean group to fight what we see as like an imperialist power.
Yeah,
Who's keeping us from outside of our borders.
maybe.
And I have mixed feelings about that because obviously I don't like Al Qaeda or North Korea, but like that's also the most human impulse. I mean, think about Geronimo.
Well,
Think
but again, if this is that big of an issue, shouldn't we be trying to unite as a planet? This people across, like, shouldn't all these governments be working together to
that's what they
stand up to
want you.
this?
That's what they want you to
That's
do.
what the aliens want is unification. So we got to fight them all individually in our tribes.
I mean, this is an interesting philosophical question,
It
right?
is.
Like, so we obviously have not united. Remember what Reagan said? He said, I often think at the UN, he said, I often think that if we were threatened by an outside extraterrestrial force, how fast all our differences would seem so small.
Yeah.
And so that's basically the point you're making.
Yeah.
However, I think there's a deeper issue. It's almost to the point where, let's say you're in a friend group or a family group and you have fights, and they could be vicious fights. But like, let's say some rando who you never met, or a rhinoceros who can speak for some reason, because that's basically what an alien is. It's not even human. Shows up one day and says, "I'm not going to let you out of the house until you work this out." What's the bigger issue? Is it the psychic rhinoceros keeping you from leaving your house, or is it the fights that you have as a family? I would see the bigger issue as the psychic rhinoceros. And even though I would love world peace, peace under the gun doesn't mean anything. So, for instance, the Native American tribes had all kinds of wars amongst themselves. Are there any Native American wars now, Patrick? No, because they're utterly subjugated after a genocide, and that's I if so. Just looking at this from a human perspective, and who knows, maybe they actually want better for us, but I can't see a race that wants better for you having advanced to the point where they have this type of control. Um, I see this as literally the government wants better for you, so give up your gun situation, just on a literal existential basis, to the point where you can be nuked, you can be destroyed, you can be given a pill you don't want to take, your mind can be melded. You have to do anything they say because you're flawed. Because we have wars. Um, and that's why I joke, but I'm serious. Like, if they ever show up over cities, oh no, I'm finding the next closest place to. I don't believe this Light Brother stuff, because if they were Light Brother stuff, they'd be here healing people, and I don't believe it. And all of history that we have recorded shows us that this type of behavior is not good. I'd rather fight. I'd rather have all of the problems with human history and try to eventually work it out ourselves than deal with some race that's violating the prime directive, basically. That's a violation of the prime directive, Patrick.
Look, before we get into any of that, I just want to deal with whoever these are and them screwing up our moon base.
Yeah, so let's get into that.
Oh, I don't have any more on that. I'm just saying, if first things first, if we're dealing with anybody, it's whoever this is and what they did to our moon base.
Okay, that's true, but
And then
also
we can deal with this bigger problem. Which again, I think we're going to have to unite for. Again, we're going to have to use their reasoning against them. We're going to have to do what they want us to do, but for our own reasons.
what if it's like this though, man? What if they have told us? What if we are in this abusive relationship, basically? And
Okay.
they've told us, look, we can't come down and land on the White House lawn until you all join together as one nation. And what if it's kind of like a threat? What if it's like, oh, and by the way, until then you can't leave. So here are your options. Excuse me. Here are your options. Either you maintain separate nations for all its faults and stuff, and you're basically trapped here as prisoners, or you join together and then, oh boy, you get the joy of them landing on your lawn and then telling you what to do on your own planet now that you've joined together. What if we would like love to unite, but like that's our invitation based on the treaty or whatever for them to just come do the same darn thing, except for in every house. You don't know that.
Well, it's just kind of a weird logic of the coming together is what will cause this to happen.
I
If
mean,
if they could do this anyway, why wouldn't they just be doing it now and just making us all come together then?
well, okay, because vampires, demonic possession, because you have to let them in
Yeah,
and they have to set the conditions, and they're not willing to come do whatever warfare or psychic warfare would be needed until we're policing ourselves,
possibly.
until we are in compliance with whatever agenda they give us. And I would love the world to come together, but I don't want to come together because the aliens tell us to come together. This episode has gone off the rails.
It really
I love
has.
it. I love it. But I mean, think about it though. It's like, think about the family example. There's a psychic kid or a psychic dog outside your door telling you he's going to eat you unless you figure out all your stuff. I mean, at some point you just got to be like, our stuff is our stuff, and that means more than you eating us. And then you know what would happen is the family would secretly plan each in their own way to go kill the dog. Like that's kind of what I'm getting the vibe is happening here. Is we want to like kill these vampire psychic things without doing what they tell us, and almost to the exclusion of doing what they tell us.
Maybe. I could see. I mean, I could see that as a possibility. I
Also,
don't know.
also, think about this. Think about this. Maybe they've made contact with 10 nations. Okay, there are 200 nations on Earth.
Yeah.
How does America and China and the Soviet Union, how do we convince the other 160 nations at least to join with us and give up their sovereignty because we've talked to the aliens and you haven't?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, there's some PR work in general.
It would
Meet
it
and greets that are going to have to happen.
it would
There'll be a
create
lot of Zoom meetings. A lot of Zoom meetings.
lots. That would create the foundation for the tyranny that the visitors would theoretically benefit from, because it would start with a kind of, you know, why they formed unions, right? Like it would start with, well, we've talked to the 5 best people and they know what's best for you, so management's going to tell you what to do. We would be like management in the big universal scheme.
Yeah.
Like, so basically world peace is trash is what I'm saying. No, just kidding. No, like we should have world peace, but like on our own terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's okay, that's where I'll leave it.
All right. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the moon bases. Honestly, like there's so much, and I don't. I don't know how to discount it anymore. It's like it seems like there's something going on there, pretty definitely. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I got to be honest. I've thought for a while the fact that WikiLeaks went into it, which has never been disputed, is that's a huge deal, man. That's a good
hmm
find. That's a good find.
I thought it would be good for the show. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope everybody listening did. Hit the like button for us, rate, subscribe, do all that. We appreciate it. We see it all. And yeah, we'll be back next week with something different. So, do you have anything else, Dennis?
No, it's been our best month ever. So keep sharing. It keeps working.
Yes.
Everybody out there, keep sharing because it keeps working. And hey, when we're the biggest show in the world, you're going to be really happy you told your friends about it.
That's right. So, thank you
All
all
right.
so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.